Is there nepotism in theater?
Oh, there's nepotism in all parts of entertainment.
How big is it? How much does you think the role of luck is?
You can have all the luck in the world, but if you don't have the talent, that luck is going to run out.
The digital world is becoming so massive.
Even during the pandemic, people thought theater died.
And let's talk about anxiety.
Like, hey, I worked with killer whales and trainers for a while. The things that they should not do is not show up.
Matthew McConaughey or Chris Pratt, who got their opportunities in a very unconventional way.
Yeah, I think...
At the stage you are in right now, what gives you happiness?
Oh, wow.
What do you want to achieve in the next 5 years?
Oh, well, within the next 5 years, we're going to have a major transformation for Sands College.
This episode is a very special one for me because I got the opportunity to work with two of the sweetest people I know here at PACE. Laurie, my guest on camera, and Brian off camera. We deep dive into acting, how anxiety affects actors, and how Sands College of Performing Arts helps actors to be one of the best performers in the whole world. And thank you so much for you guys for tuning in. Now straight to the episode. Laurie Brown-Kindred. For people who are watching who are unaware of your work, what do you do and who do you do it for?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I am the director of production for Sands College of Performing Arts at Pace University, and basically what that means is I ensure that we fully produce the 14 various productions that are our experiential learning labs for the Sands College students. So within those 14 productions, we do 4 plays, 3 musicals, 2 large dance concerts, 2 devised works, and 3 short films.
It has to be so many moving parts. Like, how do you handle it all together?
So it is a lot of moving parts. As a production manager and directing all of production, you really have to tackle a production film versus musical versus dance. It all has similar components, even though they're very different mediums in the end. So the best way that we tackle a production is we actually work backwards from strike, of when we need to strike and open in those performances, and then backing it up as all the logistics that have to be taken into consideration beforehand.
And I want to set the premise for our conversation. I'm going to be asking you a question as someone between the age of 18 to 25, trying to enter the scene of theater.
Okay.
How much does you think the role of luck is?
Well, I actually think that, yes, luck does play a part in whatever part of success in performing arts, whether it be in front of the camera or on the stage or behind the scenes. But I also say a majority of the actual work is a cross between talent and showing up and doing your due diligence. So you can have all the luck in the world, but if you don't have the talent, that luck is going to run out. You can have all the luck in the world and you can have the talent, but unless you show up, are on time, disciplined, have your work ready, you're prepared to work with everyone, that talent and luck is also going to run out.
Yes.
So I always tell students that if you really want to make sure you're seen constantly, and to make sure your name is held up in whatever part of the industry you're in, you have to always show up on time. You cannot be the one that is always late.
Yes.
You have to always show up prepared.
Yeah.
So prepared to work, ready to do the work, ready to move forward, ready to help the piece move forward. The worst thing on a production, no matter which one, for a producer, for a director, for the manager, is having to redo something over again.
Your hard work meets opportunity. That's where magic happens. What percentage of hard work do you think that happens if you take this 100% opportunity?
I mean, it's hypothetical, right? So I definitely think the hard work and the diligence is the majority of that percentage.
Yeah, sorry to cut you in. Because I have heard stories about Matthew McConaughey or Chris, Pat, who got their opportunities in a very unconventional way.
Yeah, I think, yes, you're right. There are those one in a thousand, a million, or whatever. But you have to consider that there's also millions of others out there that don't have that same path, right? In the end, none of them have a reputation of being unkind, right?
This is interesting. Yeah.
None of them have the reputation of not showing up and ready to work.
Yeah.
Those are the things that actually keep them. So they may be the star, they may have had the luck to get their foot in, but in order to keep your foot in, you do need the talent, but then you also need to be a good, kind, very professional person. You still have to show up and do the work,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I gotcha. And at this stage, probably when the digital world is becoming so massive and people are chasing towards people who are having a massive social media following, like where do you think that theater is going?
Well, I mean, even during the pandemic, people thought theater died, right? But when you look at the history of theater and what it has survived over centuries, it's still the prime art form. When you see something on the TV or a movie screen, there is a literal barrier that's keeping
Yeah.
you from having that interaction with the entertainment side. But when you're in live theater, you're a part of it automatically, and not only being there witnessing the live form of theater, but you're also experiencing it with 100 to 1,000
Yeah.
other people simultaneously.
Yes.
That gives it that that unique moment, because even though they may be doing that show 8 times a week, that experience that you had in that moment can't be replicated because that happened.
Yeah.
Right in that moment, and nothing else, no other type of no other type of entertainment can give you that interaction.
Do you think acting in theater is the purest form of acting?
I mean, I think it's a pure form of acting, yes, in that, it's a start to finish, right? Like once that curtain opens and those lights come up, that it's a train that just keeps going for that performance. When we think about acting in film, it's snippets, it's moments that are taken and pieced together to make that art form. So I think it's pure in that aspect, that it's from start to finish, it's a one performance.
And also, do you think it's tough for actors to perform in theater? Because it's just a start and a stop.
I think that's the challenge. I think it's whatever venue you're in and performing in. A small venue, very different compared to a 2,000 seat venue, right? Are you being mic'd in that 2,000 seat venue, or do you have to project? But then you also have a live audience there that can, based on their reactions, can actually alter your performance. Right? You can have a joke, a line that lands with an audience one night and they react and feel from it. And then the next performance, you can feel like you're giving that same delivery, and then there's crickets in the audience.
Yeah.
And an actor has to be able to adapt
Yeah. Take
and
both sides.
continue that
Yeah.
performance no matter what that reaction is. So I think it's the added element. It's almost like the 11th cast member in the show is the audience.
In people chasing after social media stars for their ticket sales, like somebody who has worked hard in acting, and when it comes to choosing between somebody who has worked hard in acting and has a massive following, people tend to choose people with a massive following.
If you're talking about artistic nonprofits, they aren't so much interested in that commercial dollar because they're doing it for whatever their artistic mission is, but they still need the audience.
Yeah.
So they still need a draw. So I think it's a very challenging piece for producers and directors and casting to think about, as far as, choosing the right performer And that's something that actors have to, deal with day in and day out, is why wasn't I cast in that? And 90% of the reason why someone may have not been cast was probably nothing to do with their talent at all.
Yeah,
It was
or acting.
probably about
Yes.
the other person that they're going to have to play opposite of, that they may have already signed, things like that. I mean, it is, I think in commercial theater, it's much more substantial to get a higher profile performer, a name that's going to be above the title as the audience draw. I don't think Romeo and Juliet at Circle in the Square would have done as well as it did if it didn't have those two
Yeah.
high profile names in front of it. I myself had friends travel in from Colorado, just to see that production. They probably wouldn't have come to New York any other time if it weren't for those two names in the production. And theater producers, especially on Broadway, are trying to grasp, 1,000, 1,200 seats in the theater 8 times a week for that same reason. So getting a high profile person to help them with those ticket sales to break even is definitely a plus.
And do you suggest actors to have a very strong social media presence?
Yeah, I think we also talk about this in some of our classes as well. You do have, when we're looking at artists, of training artists, they really have to leave SANS, or at the same time while they're in SANS, because we do have a lot of students who are currently working in various industries. I think they have to really think about what their brand is. A designer, a performer, a dancer, or whatnot, they have to really think about what their brand is, because they're going to be selling themselves as a brand. And then they have to think about, okay, who's their audience? Who are they selling that brand to an audience to? And then they have to think about, okay, based on that audience and their brand, what market, what social media outlet do they need to go to, right? Some of them may only be Instagram. Some of them may go to TikTok, right? If they're thinking about their own content creation, right? So I definitely think it is a part of our new way of working in the entertainment industry. I think people have to be very careful about what they then post and support.
You made a very good point about the brand of an actor. Like, do you think somebody who's trying to get into theater and other guy trying to get into film should have different type of persona to them?
I don't think it's a persona. I think they need to show that they have a variability, that they have the opportunity to change from one medium, that they can also do the other.
We all know AI is here. And how do you say students to use it?
I mean, it's definitely come a long way in the past several years, right? And I think SAG did as much as they could to get ahead of protecting artists from AI, actors specifically, which I then think is going to then lead into the other unions as a protection from AI. I think the tools of AI could be useful. For actors, I'm actually not quite sure. For writers, I mean, it definitely helps them change, assistants and whatever.
Brainstorming.
Yeah. But in the artistry of design, it can be easily manipulated in a various way to where only a trained eye now can tell the difference between AI-generated design versus original artwork.
Is there nepotism in theater?
Oh, there's nepotism in all parts of
Yeah.
entertainment.
How big is it?
Nepotism and well, there is definitely much of who you know in any part of the entertainment industry, right? I mean, if you look at forms of like IATSE, the Stagehand Union was known for a long time of just being, the grandfather that passed it off to the son, that passed it off to the grandson to be able to become a union stagehand, right? You have directors that have children that are getting in that, but again, they can't just have that nepotism, luck, and whatever. They also have the talent. You can't use that nepotism, coin toss without being an actual, genuine, kind person. That's not going to last. So, yes, so nepotism is definitely alive and running in the industry, but it only can get you so far.
Actors like Anna Hathaway and Hugh Jackman have transitioned from theater to films. Is this transition still possible?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's the way that artists are going to keep, keeping their resume variable. It keeps them interesting. If they would keep doing the same thing over and over again, artists will get very bored very easily. You don't need. I don't think any of those celebrities need to do theater. It definitely doesn't pay the paycheck that films do, right? They do it for a different reason. They do it because they have the love of theater, because it's a different feeling.
The attention span of people is like reducing day by day. How do just theater try to fight this?
Well, I think, our amazing Patti LuPone, I think, kind of does us all do justice by her continuous fight for people's attention when they're in the theater, which is true. It's not only distracting for a performer on stage, but you're now distracting all the people around you.
Yeah, I think it's also disrespecting the actor.
Absolutely. It's a
Yeah.
whole disrespect. I don't think there's anything to do about it. It is a part of the live audience and sitting there and sharing that experience with those people, but I think us calling out more to it. I think the theater owners, the ushers, the house management, paying more close attention and sticklers to audience members of reminding them to do that so that the actors don't have to stop a show mid-performance to call them out.
And let's talk about anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah. How does an actor who has involved himself in a very big production handle anxiety? There are 2,000 people, 4,000 eyes looking at him.
I think by the time an actor has reached that point in which they're in front of, 2,000, it doesn't even matter. I know people who still get, butterflies in their stomach when they're in front of 50 people, I think what, for actors, to be prepared, preparing for the role is one thing and preparing for the performance is another. So I think by the time when we're in our training at Sands Productions, it's really all about what's your habit? What are your habits? What are your things that you do in coming to the performance, right? We have a half-hour call. We might have to call you 45 minutes prior for you to do a fight call, for you to do an intimacy call, to do just a check-in, right? And then you have that half hour with the castmates or in your dressing room preparing for the show. So what are you doing in that? What is your mental preparation? So I think it's different for every actor.
Somebody's just starting out and is in the first year at Sands. What are the things they should do? And most importantly, what are the things they should not do?
The things that they should not do is not show up, right? We always tell first year students that, we're here for you. You are not here for us. We're here for you. So you have to show up. You have to come and participate. I also break it down to some students of like, okay, how much are you paying in tuition? And how many credits and hours are you taking each semester? Then divide that, and every hour you miss, that's how much money you're wasting.
And also you could look this insane confidence in people who have prepared and come to class, right?
Yeah. You see it from the moment,
they
from the
stand
first year.
differently,
Right. I think also telling specifically SANS students who come in so entrenched in like their own discipline, right? Their own focus. So those commercial dance students, they're only thinking about dance. So what we do try to tell first year students is find a hobby. find an outlet. Find something else to take you out of this, to let you reset your mind so that you can then come back refreshed when needed. Also, being in New York, you know, you're in the city with tons of free things to do.
Yeah.
Go to a park. You know, go to those number of free museums. You know, this is the time to do it when you're a student, to be able to help you really expand what are the things that you like. But I think also keeping fit and staying active doesn't just help in your physical training. I think it also helps in your mental training.
Yes. And which was your first ever show you did?
Oh, wow. I would say, you know, my first directing show that I did was a stage show of Buried Child in Philadelphia, which really, really confirmed my love for directing. I did, you know, my first like out of theater and a theme park world and amusement world. I did project management and video direction for SeaWorld.
Okay.
Right? It was just so bizarre and strange, but like, hey, I worked with killer whales and trainers for a while. But then my first Broadway show that I worked on, from development, workshops, out of town into Broadway, was A Tale of Two Cities. So that was a real treat.
How did you like end up in China?
How do you end up in China?
Yeah.
Well, you get on a plane.
Yeah.
And then
I know
you
that.
and then you go. I worked with a producer who I predominantly worked with commercially for over a decade. We had gotten the contract with Nederlander Worldwide. Nederlander is one of the 3 Broadway theater owners. And they were opening up a Broadway office in China, in Beijing. And so we were hired to go manage the first tour of a show in China and at multiple theaters across China, and do the first opening of that Broadway office in Beijing.
Theater something that you stumbled upon, or it was always in your mind when you're growing up and you knew that I want to get into theater when I grow up?
I think for me it really hit when I was in high school and started doing performing and singing. I come from a small town in South Louisiana where there wasn't a lot to do except sports and school. They really started doing theater when I was in 8th grade. All of my family had always gone to Louisiana State University, which is a huge public university in Louisiana, known mostly for sports and being a part of the Southeastern Conference. Even though I love Louisiana State University and loved every part of it, I did not see myself in theater in there. I was set to go there for chemical engineering. I was set to go there for
Poor support, right?
Yes, I was supposed to go for, you know, I was top of my class in all the maths and sciences and supposed to go. And at the, you know, end of my junior year going into senior year, I was like, no, I actually want to go study theater. And I got into this little college in Columbia, Missouri. There was a women's college that really sparked my, like, yes, this is what I want to do.
Like when you came to New York, was it sans your like first gig?
No, it was, I answered an ad. I answered an ad to the producer who had various criteria that I basically was able to check off all the boxes. So one was, you know, work with puppets, because he was producing a show that had puppets. I was actually general managing a puppet theater company at the time in Philadelphia. It was also creating a show about animals. I had been, while in Philly, I had been a literary manager at the Philadelphia Zoo and worked in the educational department. Just as a fluke, like taking jobs no matter what, right? Just like expanding my resume and doing whatever. So I was able to check that box. He needed someone to work on a program, Corel Draw, so I knew that. And so I basically answered his ad and was hired the next week. And moved to New York without having any place to live, stayed on the couch of a friend for 3 weeks until found an apartment, and then that was it. So, in essence, it was like a stroke of luck because not many people come to New York with a job
Yeah.
at hand. Most
Yeah.
people are, like move to New York and then find a job.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that was my stroke of luck. But if you look at it, it's actually because I had that list of resumes, right? I did
Yeah.
all of that
The
work
opportunity,
and that paid
hard
off.
work. Yeah.
Exactly.
And acting is such a unconventional job, and there's a saying that just probably 1 to 2% of the actors are able to make a living out of it.
Well, I think the biggest thing specifically for actors is the knowledge that they have to do it for the long haul, right? Everyone doesn't find their place in acting when they're 20 years old. Some people, I have a friend who didn't get her first Broadway show until she was 45 years old. Right?
Wow.
Didn't, a lot of people, you have to be in it for the long haul. And you have to be able to find those survival jobs to be able to make your living while you're continuously trying to do your acting career. So that's another thing that we teach in our foundations class is how much do you need to make in a month, in a year to survive? And if you're not going to do that on acting, then what's your survival job, right? What are the other things that you can do to make a living?
This is very interesting because you tend to show the actors the reality of it. It's not just a 5 to 6 year thing where you become famous, it's for the long haul. And I don't think, or I don't know any of the courses that teach this. I want to get into your childhood phase, okay?
Okay.
Because I think childhood influences a lot about how you think when you grow up. Is there anything that you did that affected your creative side?
So I think growing up, it was really just movies and reenacting them and seeing them, singing, the songs, dancing. I mean, I think all of that really is what sparks it for a young performer, for a child, is anything that they see and then anything that they want to replicate, right? So yeah, I think that was the same for me.
Is there anybody, like somebody in Sands, you think that these guys are gonna make it?
Well,
Probably
I'm
I'll
not
cut
going to
this
do any
off.
names.
Yeah.
There are a number of extremely talented performers, designers, dancers, at any level. Yeah, it's always interesting to see the circle of students that are coming in and out of the doors.
What does your role, do you think, is as a mentor?
Well, I think, when I came to the one thing that drew me to come to Pace after working commercially for so long was that I loved the idea of having an academic calendar and things not really changing, that it can be the same year after year, but then we mold it, But then the second part of that was, oh yeah, we're now training these young artists. So what I love to see about being a mentor to the students, I actually worked here for 7 years before I taught a class, before I got into the classroom. And I would always tell people, no, I don't teach or don't do grades. I just do production. And one of my associates was like, you do realize in production you're teaching all the time. And it was like, yes. So what I really love about that part of being director of production, one is that I don't just work with actors. I work with all of the SANS students from all 8 programs, depending upon which production we're working on. But predominantly, I work with the production design and stage management students because that 12% population of SANS supports all 14 productions. So versus the design, the tech part of it, the stage management part, those students. So the mentoring of those students, having them take what they learn in the classroom to the real live experiential learning, right? So when we're in production, we truly try to replicate as what we're doing at SANS is what you're going to experience in the professional world. we do say, yes, it's safe to make mistakes here. This is when you want to make a mistake. This is in your, education environment. This is when it's okay. But then what do you learn from it?
I always wrap up my show with these two questions.
Okay.
At the stage you are in right now, what gives you happiness?
Oh, wow. What gives me happiness? I think, I have my kids are 17 years old. So I'm seeing my happiness, just seeing them starting that spark of becoming young adults, going out in the world. So right now, I would say, if you would have asked me that this morning, having them still be kids, but also seeing them make that transition to being young adults.
And where do you see yourself, or what do you want to achieve in the next 5 years?
Oh, well, within the next 5 years, we're going to have a major transformation for Sands College in the opening of One Pace Plaza East, the Performing Arts Center. So it's going to be very transformational. So I want to be able to elevate Sands College and Pace University in that aspect, not just, bringing in more students and creating more majors, but also wanting to I want to raise the bar for the PACE presence in the city as well as in the performing arts university world. Making sure that we are on the map as PACE University, Sands College. Right now we're the fourth largest on Broadway from university represented. We have students, a large number of students, most number of students that are Rockettes, So how can we elevate that even more with our new Performing Arts Center?
Thank you so much for spending your time with us here. And I think I have learned a lot, and probably anybody who want to get into entertainment will watch this podcast and will learn a lot. And thank you so much for doing this.
Amazing. Thank you.